Rolando.
And I'm Eddie Z.
And this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals.
An original podcast
about
unoriginality.
Sorry, guys, we are one day late on an episode, but, at least we delivered it because Nicole is still out of town, and it's just me and Eddie running the show, and you know what? Like two gay men just can't stay on schedule, I guess. So that's all I can say, right?
I'm not going to agree, but...
Don't we have a habit of being late? Especially us, I say. You know what? We're still delivering. And today we're giving you guys part 2 of our 2-part series about HPI, which was the original, which we covered last week, the French detective show about a woman with a high IQ who helps police officers solve crimes. And now we're covering the American remake starring Kaitlin Olson, the ABC Hulu original High Potential. And yeah, I am looking forward to talking about this one. So I will be remiss if I did not say that I was wrong. I said the first 2 episodes mimic the first 2 episodes of the American remake, or I guess just say the American remake mimic the first 2 episodes of the original show. But that's not the case. Actually, it's the first episode and the 3rd episode of the American remake that mimic the first 2 episodes of the original one. The second one, from what I could see, was a more so original story. And I just wanted to just call that out because I know on 1 or 2 of the comments that we got, they were trying to correct me on that. And so, hey, when I'm wrong, I will admit it.
Good.
Thank you. Anyway, Eddie, are you a fan of procedurals, police procedurals in general?
It's so funny because we really get bombarded. I mean, there is enough police procedurals out there on television. I mean, Law and Order and the variations of it are so there's so much out there. So usually,
I think NCIS still exists, also, right?
I think so.
Yeah, that's a procedural, basically.
Usually, I like my procedurals with the twists, not just typical regular police work, but like something else is introduced, whether it's like a supernatural element. Or like in this case, you have a civilian with high IQ who's able to notice things and see things that other people may not, or put things together the way other people don't seem to be able to.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the detectives of this particular unit she's working with.
Yeah. You mentioned the supernatural elements. Like, is there a supernatural show that comes to mind?
Grimm.
Oh, Grimm was a procedural?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that about Grimm.
So, I mean, in the sense of that he's a detective from Portland homicide, and he's like, investigating all these particular crimes, all these deaths, and somehow they are connected to some supernatural element.
Got it. So, if you didn't listen to HPI last week, I'll go over a quick premise of what the show is, and they're very similar in the sense that basically we follow Morgan. She is a cleaning lady for the LAPD, and she has a high IQ, I think an IQ of 160, and she also has like kind of this neurodivergence in which she has to piece together puzzles because if she cannot solve something, it drives her crazy, right? She'll stay up all night. And on the very first episode, she becomes integral in helping a police officer find a missing woman that they actually thought was the actual suspect.
Yeah. Exactly.
And, the chief of the department, I think the department, she hires her to be a consultant. And, considering that Morgan is kind of, a struggling single mom with 3 kids, she decides to take the opportunity in exchange of a slightly pay bump, but more importantly, to have the police help her solve the crime of her missing, or the mystery of her missing husband.
Her first husband.
And yeah, and that is what the show follows. We have a very, very kind of funny, all right, so let's talk about Morgan, right? Because in this version, she's quirky, right? Where I would say the original Morgan in HPI was much more no nonsense and really will like cut you. I feel like this Morgan is a little bit much more toned down in that sense, right? She's a lot more, I don't know, she seems jollier, a little more jovial, in my opinion. What do you think?
Well, first, the lighting is better on this show.
The lighting is better.
It's way
we could
better.
talk about the costuming in a bit, but
the lighting is way better. All right, so I think in the sense of that she does have you definitely get that she is a person you don't want to mess with. She's definitely quick with the wit on this, and can easily speaks her mind. Really, speaks her mind. I find her the portrayal of this particular character less gruff or like rough on just kind of like on the general her reaction to the French one, whereas was very much very like very violent moments.
Yeah, she was hot-headed. She was more temperamental.
But compared to this Morgan, I feel like very much she is,
she's toned down. They toned her down from the original one. And it's an interesting job that Kaitlin Olson is playing, because Kaitlin Olson, who is most famous for her role in Always Sunny, already has like kind of this gruff attitude attached to her as an actress because of her role in Always Sunny. Like, granted, I think in Always Sunny, she has always been my favorite of the prime cast, because I feel like her character has the most range. And that's not to say that the other actors don't have their moments where they get to shine, but she has always consistently had much more of character, not development necessarily, but like much more range in emotions that she has to explore as a character, right? Dee, I think, is by far the best character that they have written. And, it stands, even more interesting enough, she's not one of the creators of the show, right? She's just an actress that they hired who is now married to one of the creators. But in this show, she's now the lead, right? And we're kind of seeing her bring a little bit of that D-ness that kind of made her famous in Always Sunny into this character of Morgan, just toned down for network television, right? And that's the other thing that we had to keep in mind. This is a show for network TV. Network TV is going to be a lot more, I don't know, demure, mindful of like its audience, right? They're not going to curse, not really going to show a lot of graphic violence. I think one of the big scenes that made a big change, for example, was in the original show, Morgan attends a crime scene with her baby in hand. Here, they would not do that. And that makes sense, right? Because I feel like most American audiences would find that a little icky to bring
very off-putting.
Yeah, to bring your toddler to a murder scene. Where I thought in HPI, that was funny. That worked. I was just like, she's so wacky. What is this crazy woman doing, right? Where here, they would we know American audiences, they just would not accept it. So I found that interesting. I do think Kaitlin Olson, and this might just be because I understand the language, obviously, right? We speak English versus French. I do like Kaitlin Olson's portrayal here as Morgan. My only qualm is sometimes she does start to feel a lot more cartoonish than the Morgan of the original show does, right? And part of that, I think we can attribute to her costume and like some of her mannerisms, right? Because like, I think Kaitlin Olson is much more exaggerated than the actress who plays the original Morgan. She, for example, the dance sequence, right? Like the original dance sequence in the original one was a lot more subdued. It felt more realistic, like how she knocked down the files that would end up helping her solve the crime. In this one, she's literally just being a little over the top and a little ridiculous, right? And I think also added to that is the costuming. I think the costumes that they have put Kaitlin Olson in feel absolutely too cartoonish, as opposed to Morgan in the original one, where even though they were like kind of loud and brash and in your face, they felt part of the world. Do you agree, disagree? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like the wardrobe in the American version tends to look on her more costumey than anything. What I do appreciate though is I think what I've noticed, there is less making fun of her clothing that I'm getting from the American version than it is from the French Belgium one. So I think that it's less making fun of it and more kind of accepting that this is the way she's dressed. This is just her style. And more, I think it's more general the idea of like when it comes to that kind of look, people are more like, oh, that's so unique, or that's just like the way they want to portray.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think it's just like,
but some of her outfits, I don't know. I feel like I guess the way they just like on her feel costumey. Sometimes it just doesn't. It's just like I don't know. I don't feel like this is like just a normal person wearing some regular clothes that are just maybe out of style or different colors, or her use of contrary like patterns,
contrasting patterns, contrasting patterns,
clashing. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't know why. I agree with you. There's something about about her costume specifically that just end up feeling much more costumey than necessarily like actual wardrobes that a person would wear, right? And I understand, and I think part of that is because the way the character is written, she's supposed to be a little bit out of the box, a little kooky. But I think when you put in the kookiness and Kaitlin Olson's portrayal and kind of blend it in with like the costume, now it just starts to feel a little bit too much, right? And I think that's something that maybe we could tone down in season 2 of this show, which I don't actually know if the show was picked up for season 2. Oh, it was, yes. As of January 21st, 2025, the show was picked up for a second season.
It's like 90-something on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean,
it has it is very positive reviewed, and
they've loved this.
They have, and it has actually been performing very well in the ratings, enough for it to get a second season for the show. So, yeah, granted, it was only a 13-season episode arc they ordered for season 1. That's very typical for first seasons of shows on network TV. I think more and more these shows are starting to move away from like kind of that
26 episodes. 22 to 26 episodes.
At least for the first season. Once the show gets an audience, you'll start seeing those 20-something episode arcs and whatnot. But Eddie, you're out of the two of us. You're the one who has seen the full series. How much more do they develop the mystery of her missing husband?
Oh, way more. Way more. So like no spoilers, but it ends with the season ends with like a reveal that like changes everything. Okay, so it ends. We find out that he's not a deadbeat dad that just tried to like leave them behind, which is what she had believed, that he went missing, something happened to him, and it seems that he was working on something, an investigation. He was part of kind of like, I want to say maybe possibly helping the FBI in some way. So that's how it ended. So not only is he truly missing, but he was involved in some form of investigation.
Yeah, I kind of figured that's where the show was going to go. I wonder if that is also similar in the French version, because in the original French version, same thing. We know her husband is missing. We just don't know when. Now, the key difference here is in the French version, he disappeared before the birth of the baby. In this one, the baby was already born. And one of the big clues that we know that he wasn't a deadbeat dad was in episode 2, when the head of the department comes and announces that, okay, we found your husband's card was impounded and there were diapers inside. So this kind of gives credence to the belief that he
went out to
get diapers, right? And
he missed.
Why would a man go get diapers if he's going to run off, right?
Yeah.
So, and it starts building a mystery. I am a fan of like overarching seasons, right? Because what I like about this kind of procedural, as opposed to something like Law and Order SVU, at least the early seasons I used to watch, Law and Order SVU, one of my favorite procedurals, but every one of those episodes was a standalone episode. There were no overarching storylines, right? Each episode was its own storyline. If I watched them out of order, it didn't matter. This one, and I think this is a smart move on their part, because each episode can be a standalone episode, by giving you kind of like a overarching narrative, it gives audiences a chance to kind of more so, I guess, become invested with like the characters a little bit more, right? Because I will say Kaitlin Olson's performance, she's very charming in the show. I like her. And part of me also likes her because I want her to find success outside of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like I'm rooting for her. I think she's one of the best things of that show. And it's nice to see her kind of like spreading her wings and fly. A funny reference to she's always being called the bird, on Always Sunny. But yes, I'm rooting for her. But I also do like the supporting cast, right? And the supporting cast of this show features, sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, but Daniel Sunjata. I don't know. I'm definitely butchering that name, but he's a guy. I remember him mostly from. He was one of the designers in The Devil Wears Prada, so he plays opposite her. He's Adam Karadek, the detective who, he is, the no nonsense kind of detective that's working with Kaitlin Olson's Morgan, and I think I actually do prefer this performance over the original French one because he seems a little warmer, and even his banter with Morgan feels a little bit, I don't know, chummier, right? Like good, like almost good cop, bad cop kind of thing.
They definitely and it didn't take it didn't take as long as I thought.
No, like episode 2, they were kind of like a little bit more chummy.
But he definitely appreciates her. He values her judgment. He sees her as a partner, and he has her back.
Yeah,
So
also featured in the show is, hang on, I'm just trying to get her name. Judy Reyes. She plays Selena Soto. She's the head of the department, the Major Crimes Division. She's from
Scrubs. She was
Scrubs,
the nurse
right?
in Scrubs.
I never really watched Scrubs, so that's why. But
she's been in a lot of things.
She has
in a lot of things. But it's so great to see her as part of the show, and it really adds so much to the diversity.
Yes.
Of the show. You see this it's a woman, it's a Latina woman running this department, really believes in her people and what they do, trying to be the best she can be in her position. So it definitely comes out, and I love the moments that she has, what her character has, Selena has with Morgan.
Yeah.
There is this appreciation. Yeah, there's appreciation. There is like strong women that are trying to, I'm losing my train of thought here. Strong women that, that are going for the truth and for justice.
Yes. Yeah. So for me, what I actually do like is actually she's much more tender with Morgan than I think the original interpretation was of the show, where I'm not saying it was cold. She definitely had like she loved that zestiness that Morgan brought to the department, but it felt much more professional. Here, it definitely, the way Judy Reyes is playing this character, it seems a lot more matronly, like a lot more motherly and a lot more caring. And I like that because I think it's kind of something that like the character of Morgan that she kind of needs a little bit, right? Again, very similar to the other Morgan of the show. Like from what you can see, didn't necessarily have like the easiest of lives. And of course, being a single mom to 3 kids kind of is not an easy feat. So because of this, I do kind of like the relationship, and I do like that we are seeing very early in the show that she is putting the effort to uphold her end of the bargain.
Yeah.
Because by at least the second episode that we had watched of the original HPI, we had not seen it. I'm not saying that it hasn't, right? There were 4 seasons of this series, so I can't speak to what's happened, but at least here in the American version, they try to establish very early on that, like, no, this woman has the other woman's back. And I agree with you too. I think the other big thing to notice here in the show is like there is a lot of diversity. This is Elon Musk's and Donald Trump's biggest nightmare, right? Like a woman running the department.
Let's not mention that. Let's not mention that.
Well, why? Like in the real world, there'd probably be, they try to figure out how to remove their funding, right? So I do like that about this, right? And the other a major person of color in the show that's kind of regular is the other cop, right? She's played by Javicia Leslie. She's the other cop on the force and stuff. And I also like her presence of this show. Like she is younger. She sees a lot more. She's with it. And I think she's also another one who kind of has a lot of faith in Morgan's character, which I love.
Yeah.
You get a lot of women supporting women in this show, not a lot of women like tearing each other down, which again, appreciate.
Yeah. And she's the tech savvy one. and I like how they do things without like being so blunt about it or so obvious. Like, oh, she's the tech one, or he's like, he's good with people.
Mm-hmm.
Not like that. It just seems like, that when it comes up, she takes the lead on gathering information, doing the technology research. It's very good. I'm looking forward to seeing more with this
Mm-hmm.
character.
Mm-hmm.
And her partner too, the one they call Oz.
Is that the other is that the younger guy also?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yes. Yeah, no, it's a good so far it's a good ensemble cast. I think the chemistry between Morgan and Adam Kardec in this series works really well. Do you think it will become a romantic relationship?
I don't want it to be.
That's
I
the question.
I don't want it to be. I know that he begins to see her as like, what I do like is he's seeing her as his partner.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, you can see that there are moments where he like, he wants to keep her safe, and
Mm-hmm.
he cares. I don't feel the romantic vibe
Mm-hmm.
from them. I may be missing it. I kind of wouldn't want it. I would love to just see them be buddies,
Mm-hmm.
and have their own separate romances.
So you want like a Benson and Olivia relationship. Benson and Stabler relationship, right? SVU, very famously platonic.
Yeah. Yeah.
They did not.
Yeah. I think it just, I don't know, make kind of more sense. I know they try to introduce a love interest this season
Mm-hmm.
with that very hot Latino guy.
Oh, I want that for her.
So they kind of introduce his character, and it's like, let's go on a date, and then something will happen, and it's like, hey, I'm moving away,
Oh.
but I'm maybe we'll connect. And he
Mm-hmm.
tries to make the effort, but then crime happens, and then she has to leave him in the middle of their date, or
Mm-hmm.
in the
Mind you, she's just a
so
consultant, right? And I mean, she's dedicated to the job. She likes
she's
it.
definitely dedicated, and she sees it through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we mentioned this last week, something about the premise of just having this like high IQ person just consulting for the cops. I don't know why it just works as a series concept, and there's a reason why this show has gotten picked up for a second season. Like people are watching it. I think it's just a charming show, and I think it just has a really good cast. It's a show that I will definitely happily continue to watch. I'm more curious to see like what they're going to do in compare. I'm actually probably, to be quite honest, I might have the HPI also running for me in the background sometimes. As I work, I have like TV on the background just to kill the noise. That might be also one of those shows because there's just something fun about it. And I do like the mysteries that they solve. Like they just tend to be, again, no, I don't want to say like silly because like there's always a murder. So it's not whimsy, it's not fun, but I don't know. I like sometimes solving crimes is also fun in that sense. And I think that's why we do like procedurals. But what I did want to add was I wonder if I know from later seasons of HPI, based off of the posters, that Morgan gets pregnant. So that's why I was asking, do you think there's going to be a romantic entanglement between her and Adam that may knock her up? And you're saying you don't
I
want
don't
that.
know. I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what the writers want, and I don't like. It's one of those things. I mean, she just had her baby is basically, I think, maybe 1 or less than 1 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's kind of like, yeah.
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 The last major difference I want to point out between the original show and this one would be probably how important this job is to Morgan. In the original one, we don't really necessarily feel the effects of like how, on the cusp of impoverished
A
the
single mom
characters
raising
are.
3 kids. Yeah.
Right.
Just that.
Yeah, of course. I'm not saying
Just
that it's
that.
not,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like we can tell here they established very early on, like she is on a tight budget, right? Like the moment her budget went off by like $7, she was on it, and which was and it was really clever way of like kind of showing how she's able to use her intellect. But I think the other way they demonstrate is like when she received her first paycheck, like you see it in Kaitlin Olson's performance. It's like, oh, this is like really important. And what does she do? She gets the car back for the family, right? And that was a big moment for the entire family. I like that aspect of the show because again, she's in LA too. LA is not for the faint of heart. Like that is you know, you either have money or you don't, you know. So yeah, I like the show. I don't know. You finished it, so you clearly do like the show.
Yeah, I love it, and I also love this whole like trivia aspect to it, like the way she picks up these clues and she's able to like recall something, and it's some random piece of information that it's you know, it's so fascinating. It's like, oh, I love that stuff. I love how that played out. It almost feels like, but I don't think it's the same style, but like Sherlock Holmes, you know, where it's like you look at something and it's like, how is this a clue? You know? And then she says it's a clue because, and then it's like this breakdown.
Yeah,
it is.
I do too. We saw that in the original show. I think the original one handles the flashbacks a little bit better, in my opinion. I don't like necessarily the way they do the flashbacks here in the American version. That's just my preference. I think they are funnier in HPI versus high potential. But I do like the flashbacks still at the end of the day, they do work because they visually show us exactly how she has pieced these things together. I just think they go a little bit too kind of quirky in the American version than they did in the original show. In the original show, like literally you just see them acting out exactly what she's talking about. In this one, again, they're a little bit more like almost expressionist, right? Like there's this, like, I don't know if you remember, for example, where she thought they were talking about a blonde. And so in the flashes of her ideas, there's a blonde person. But then when he realizes a brunette, then a brunette literally comes up and pushes the blonde out of the way and then takes over the rest of the scene. And I was just like, okay, I get it. I understand this was happening in her head, but it's not, I don't need it, you know? I like if we save our flashes of brilliance for actual moments that like matter, or like things that, yeah. So because I'm thinking about the other Morgan when she was like talking about like, look at the wood, it's not wet here, and it would be hard to clean. And because then they have her like literally scrubbing from her past as a cleaning lady, right? That kind of stuff is what I'm talking about. But yeah, no, I think overall it's a charming show. I don't know. I think that's it. What do you guys think? Have you guys seen High Potential? Did you finish the season? Did you know that High Potential was a American remake? And would you be inclined to watch the original one? Let us know in your comments below. And also hit us up on Instagram. We're available on all the social media, but Instagram tends to be our popular one. You can find us at Remakes, Reboots, Revivals. And you can send us an email. We love to hear from you guys. Our email is remakesrebootsrevivals@gmail.com. And we will be back later this week with another episode. And yeah, anything you want to add, Eddie?
No, it's a great show. I really love it. I'm looking forward to the next season.
Yeah, me too. I will finish it by the time the new season comes around. But I guess that's it. We're all waiting for Nicole to get back from her wonderful trip in Europe. And, you know, we kind of need someone to help steer the ship. So, yeah. So with that said, until next time,
stay unoriginal.